anything that's going on, I'll clarify it. So I'm good.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to give a special offer.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Toward the end. Same one you got.
That's awesome. So cheers to you guys. Thanks for coming on tonight. Water, coffee, tea.
Water.
Water.
I've got both water and an alcoholic beverage because it's my birthday.
Well, this is what you should have on your birthday. It's really good dark chocolate.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah, that is good stuff.
Those things are great.
And it's really good. It's healthy for you too if you have really good dark chocolate.
Not if you eat it in the quantities that I do.
That's okay. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of business and how you got started, because I feel like that's really interesting and a good starting point.
It is interesting to people, myself included. I have a corporate background in an MBA, so I had 3 careers prior to this. Successful, but in each one I would just hit a wall after so many years of just unfulfillment, knowing, being bored, off track, just knowing I was supposed to do something else. And I just couldn't figure out what it was. And in the middle of the second career, I worked with a career coach. Maybe I'm dense, but it just didn't help me, and read all the books and all that and just wasn't getting anywhere. My third career was my own business as a professional speaker. That lasted longer, I realized, after I got my hand analysis, because it was closer to purpose than the first 2 careers. But, and it took 15 years before I hit that wall. And just, dadgummit, I hit it again. I really thought I had it made, but I didn't know what to do. So I kept doing it. But as my heart pulled away from the business, so did the revenue. But again, I didn't know what to do different. So I just kept throwing, it was a waste of time, and got one of those proverbial wake-up calls, a cosmic 2 before. And my parents both passed away within 3 months of each other.
Wow.
And it just was a real, hey, life is short. I need to quit farting around and figure this out.
Right.
So I started Googling, how do I find my life purpose? I literally went online and went down a couple of wrong paths. And a few months later, ran across a headline for a teleseminar, and it said, discover your innate life purpose. I was like, I couldn't click on that thing fast enough. And the first words I saw were hand analysis.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed because I thought palm reading is not going to help me. It's fun, good palm readers, but that's not what I'm looking for. Then I saw the word scientific, and I really held on to that. And that one word helped me put aside my anal MBA skepticism. I listened to the teleseminar, made a lot of sense, really wanted my purpose, got a hand analysis done, changed my life, blew my mind.
Yeah. And it does blow your mind. Just
let's
just put it all out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty sweet process. And it is, like you said, very, it's pretty in depth and lots of details. And by the way, I wouldn't say that you're dense. I think I would be dense because I didn't even know the difference between analyst and analysis. So that's where we're going. And I love the Google machine. I love the Google machine. If you ever do anything, except for when you're trying to diagnose yourself when you're not feeling well, probably stay away from it because that's just not going to help you. But so I had the same thought process too, because you think hand analysis and then you think palm reading.
Right.
And I have to share a little story with you. When I was younger, we would go up north a lot, and we had a cottage with my grandparents, and their neighbors, one of the ladies used to always go to the local fair, and she'd go and get her palm read. And, it was like a fortune teller or whatever. And she swore by this lady that she was like the real deal. And one year when I got enough courage, I really wanted to do it. And I was pumped up to go, and I was going to do it. And I saved my money, and it stormed so bad that the whole fairgrounds flooded. And so I never had a chance to do it. But I know that there's a huge difference between palm reading and hand analysis. So I want to talk about that because I think that is super important, because it's not at all.
A couple of comments. Well, so first of all, I don't want to disparage palm readers because they're very good ones. Secondly, everything, I think that storm kept you from getting yourself in trouble. I just talked to somebody today. Well, I just talked to somebody today who was, when she was 20, so this was probably 40 years ago, was down in New Orleans, on Bourbon Street, and went down an alley with some girlfriends, and they found a palm reader, and the palm reader looks at her, and the only thing she said was, "Oh, you're going to die when you're 83." Now, what the F? I mean, come on.
Yeah, right.
What an irresponsible thing to tell somebody. And she said, "It's not like I believe it, but I know when I'm 82, I'm going to be sitting there going, no."
Counting down the minutes.
God.
Whoa. Yeah.
So
Does that.
there are good palm readers, but they're predictive like that. When you're going to get married, when you're going to meet Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, how many kids? There's no prediction in hand analysis. It's the lines in your hands mimic the neural pathways in your brain. This is a neurotechnology, and it's extraordinarily accurate. Enough so that Forbes wrote about it.
Yep,
I mean, the gentleman that created this system spent 40 years, can't imagine, and analyzed over 30,000 hands. That's more subjects than any FDA drug out on the market.
Yeah,
so
for
it's
sure.
very reliable, very robust, and as you have experienced, very accurate.
It's very accurate. I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. Like, I knew I was getting what I was getting myself into, but I didn't really like fully understand until I got into it. And
Yeah.
it is a really neat and amazing experience. And you really have to go into it. I went into it with like an open mind, like,
Yeah.
and I was open to receiving the information. But then, like you said, you get into it and there's a lot of information to process. And at one point you were kind of like, oh boy, we should probably dial this back a little bit because it's a lot of information.
Mhm.
But with your process, I love it because I get an hour with you over the Zoom. We go over it after I send you all the stuff and turn in the kit. We can talk about that more later. But and then I get to listen back to it at my own time, and it was just
And another hour.
And another hour after that.
Another
with
hour
you.
to ask questions and get
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah, after
It's
you
so
process.
important.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive, very profound and deep.
Yeah, I
Wow.
still Go ahead,
So
Fletch.
the 30,000 subjects that were looked at as a part of a study. So how do you connect the neural pathways to the mimic of the hand
Got me.
print? Yeah.
Got me. I don't know the answer to that. Don't care. Not sure if anybody has the answer to that, other than I can tell you that the gentleman who created this system and did all this work wrote a book about it. His name is Richard Unger. The book is called Life Prints, and it doesn't include everything. That book would be that thick, because every marking means something.
Mhm.
But the foreword to that book, Fletch, was written by a neurosurgeon from Stanford who was using scientific hand analysis with his patients. He's since retired because the book's been out a while, but
It's fascinating.
It is, it really is. And I don't even think, and there's a whole lot of medical studies in the back of the book in the bibliography.
Yeah.
But none of them say this line in your brain corresponds with this line in your hand. No.
That's fascinating. I mean, some people do believe that, there is the other side, right? Where our souls come from. I don't know if you've heard these theories before. Sylvia Brown is somebody that writes about that.
Yeah.
And that we write our stories before we come here and all the possible pathways that we have.
Yep.
And it's just fascinating that, your mind would connect to your body and your imprint of your mind and your story would also be shown on your hand. Because, we always look at our hands.
I know.
And it's kind of a the subconscious, conscious. It's pretty neat when you think
it's really cool. We get a lot of information from fingerprints, and fingerprints are formed when you're just 14 to 16 weeks, little embryo.
Yeah.
And that's when Native Americans and other
cultures,
I would say more connected cultures, that's when they say the soul enters the embryo. So you could say the soul, I have goosebumps.
I
The
know.
soul brings in your purpose, because that's the main thing people get from a hand analysis is their innate life purpose, how they're meant to make a difference in the world. Not a job description, it's the concept behind your ideal work, and everybody has options. But you're born with the core of your life purpose, your biggest challenge,
Right.
and then sort of your operating system.
Right.
Those two things you're born with.
So your particular hand analysis helps us figure out like what our fingerprints say, and you
Yep.
help us find out our main purpose, our core purpose.
Yep.
And that's through the study of this book. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what are some of the benefits besides finding your core purpose and your master purpose, or your master path and your student path?
Well, so every marking has master and student path,
right.
both. And we all go back and forth. Nobody can be on master 100%, or we would evolve out of humanity, so, but yes, it tells you your innate purpose, how you're meant to make a difference in the world, and your blind spots. And I call them tripping points, because rarely are they blind.
Right.
Rarely does somebody say, oh, I didn't know that about myself. They know it. They may not have articulated it that way, or they may not have thought about it, but it's going to resonate. There's been a couple of people, but out of several thousand that I've done, that's not even, it's a rounding error. So yeah, it tells you where to take action, how to make the difference you're meant to make, some of your gifts and talents that you're meant to use to help you fulfill that purpose, personality, just different, almost everything about who you are and why you're here.
Yeah. And it's fascinating too, because you talked about the master path being your blueprint to your best life, and that like you can't always be on your master path, and that you have student paths. And we went through what my master path was and my student paths, and you connected where the student paths were. And you also, there's 3 pieces. This is what I really want to talk about. There's 3 pieces of information that you provide during the hand analysis, which is life school, life lesson, and the life purpose.
Yep.
So let's talk about that, because I thought you were hilarious. You like cracked me up, because you were like, your fingerprints were a bitch. And I was like, well, leave it to me to be an overachiever with my fingerprints. And you were just and I was like, maybe it was my fault. Like maybe I didn't do, because it's kind of nerve wracking. You get the kit in the mail and there's very specific instructions, but they're very well written instructions, easy to follow. But I thought, well, maybe I didn't do it correctly, and you're like, no, how could you screw that up? And then I did send you my fingerprints again,
which I just want to say is very unusual.
Really?
1% of the time does somebody have to redo their prints. I don't want people to get nervous about that.
Yeah.
1% of the, and I'm just pulling that out of the air. It's probably a 0.5%, really.
Yes,
but
it's just a
You're saying
Jozlyn
that-
percent. It's a Jozlyn percent. That's it. I'm the only one.
Yeah, like everybody except for you pretty much can read the instructions and handle it.
Shut up.
No, it's her
you know,
prints. Some prints
I'm
are
just
just
kidding.
hard to read.
Right.
Her prints were hard to read, and it's interesting because they were on her left hand. So I'm going to out you a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Left hand is inner stuff and personal. So there's some stuff you just don't want to put out there.
Right. She was saying that sometimes you feel like you like hold back and you hold within, not like necessarily hiding or like dual, but like, yeah, which was true, because sometimes I used to be super shy, and here I am.
Exactly.
Now I'm an extrovert, but I'm a learned extrovert, but I actually am to the core very much an introvert and very shy, very, very much so, even till this day. So, so let's talk about, like, there's 4 categories of fingerprints.
Right.
And those, you have to have a certain number of markings to get in a school, which is the life school, which is one of the category, like is one of the parts of the pieces of the hand analysis. So let's talk about that, because I remember mine was my school was school of service, and you have to have a certain number of markings to be in a school, and everybody's in one school. Typically
you can be in, most people are in 1, many are in 2.
Yeah.
Some are in 3, and very rarely is somebody in all 4 schools. But so I want to clarify, first of all, those 3 markings, school, lesson, and purpose, that's what we get from the fingerprints. Yes. And that's the information that will never change about you. Yes. There's other things you get from a hand analysis too, but those can change. The school, the lesson, and the purpose will not. That's what you're born with.
Yeah.
Because your fingerprints don't change. That means the information that I get about you from your fingerprints won't change either.
Right.
And the school, it's kind of like your operating system, the filter through which you experience life and through which you make a lot of decisions. Yeah. So, and there's 4. So yes. Jozlyn was in the school of service. There's also love, peace, and wisdom. I don't want to get into too much detail because
Yeah.
people will get lost. And then life lesson, man, that is such an important thing to learn. That's the number one thing, the biggest obstacle that keeps people from living their purpose. And I believe living in alignment with your purpose is the only way to that deeper and more consistent joy and fulfillment that everybody craves.
Yeah.
So you want to take action on your life lesson because it's the number one thing tripping you up.
Yep. And you said it was the key to your hand almost.
The key to your hand.
I think you
to
said the
take
big
action on.
kahuna. You said the big
It's the
kahuna.
big kahuna life lesson or the big kahuna student path, because every marking has a student path, but this one is the whopper.
Yeah, it was really beneficial for me to know what school I was in, you know, that I had a couple markings that put me in the school of service. And, you know, you nailed it. You know, you said I help others. It involves communication. I mean, are we surprised that I'm involved in communication? No. You know, path of consciousness and making a difference in the world. So all of that stuff like really resonated with me very deeply, you know, in just who I am, you know. And then you said something really interesting. You said something about like, do the right thing no matter what. And you said, and consciousness is more important than the action that I take. And the action I take is more important than the outcome. And that was just, you know, intuitively and going through my fingerprints and us just going through the process like that. I wrote that down and I'm going to like frame it, you know, because it's like, seriously, I mean, it was really validating and really helpful and it really resonated with me. So
Good.
that's a little piece I'm going to share with y'all.
Well, and what I want to say is too, some people go, well, of course we're meant to make a difference. And of course I want to help people.
Yeah.
Yes, but there are variations on that and depth of level. So school of service, you are meant to do that.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that she said about it's called the path of consciousness, you know, that the reason you're helping people is what's more important than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.